Over the years, I've made a lot of videos on how to improve as a driver, and recently we've taken things a step further. Along with Luke, I hosted a workshop with a few content creators who were really committed to improvement. We analyzed their replays, track their progress, and work with them step by step to help them become better drivers. And I believe this video should really highlight that not everyone is the same and not everyone struggles with the same issues. So with this one, I've gathered some real insights from real people, and I just wanted to show you clearly what their struggles are. And that way, more people can relate and get real value from this. One of the people who made the most progress was Neil. He even mentioned to himself that at first he just wanted to drive, but the real progress comes from really understanding what works and what doesn't work.
But actually studying a track properly and watching laps by faster drivers and learning braking points rather than just smashing out lots of laps.
And that's exactly it. Understanding what works can definitely help you in the long run. We went through the footage and noticed that most of the time he just wasn't using the reference points from the top-rated drivers. And unfortunately, there is only one optimal racing line. And if you don't know what your references are, and if you're not using that optimal racing line, it's just going to cost you a lot of time. And it's always better to do your homework than to skip it. And I always suggest spending a bit of time analyzing what works. Watch what the best drivers are doing and try to copy that. It's actually as simple as that. Finding good reference points won't instantly make you a world champion, but it's a great place to start. And you'll definitely benefit from it. And in the end, he even said it himself.
I treated every single lap as a race. And ideally, at that stage, I should have deliberately been driven really slow laps and concentrated on learning the braking points and the apex, hitting the apexes and getting good exits.
Just to clarify, when we say slow laps, we literally mean that. Don't try to push to the limit on every single lap. All you need is to just focus on finding the optimal racing line through the corners, and you'll already be ahead. And that's why I always recommend taking it very easy. Don't try to push to the limit straight away, and that's something that many drivers do at the beginning. So in this example, some of the mistakes were actually quite obvious. He was pressing the accelerator while trying to brake, which of course will increase his braking distance. And I believe the key takeaway is to calm down and take things one step at a time. Trying to do everything at once never works, and if you're new to the game, take a step back, analyze your driving, see if you're actually following the proper racing line, and if not, just slow down and try to copy someone else who is much faster than you. When the time feels right, get back onto the track and really start increasing your speed gradually through the corners. And I believe this approach helped a lot of drivers, including me when I started with sim racing. And funny enough, Deacon also mentioned that he was struggling with the exact same thing.
Corner exits really cost me a bunch of time in the beginning, as I was on the throttle too early, too heavy, or sometimes both. At the best, I was losing, tenths of a second a corner. At worst, I was, spinning out and losing tens of seconds, or in some really bad cases, taking other racers out.
I believe this approach is fine during the qualifying because nothing serious will happen if you make a mistake. Many drivers believe that pushing the car to its absolute limit and making it work harder will actually improve their lap time. In reality, it's the other way around. As explained before, his poor exits were likely caused by being too impatient with the throttle. And this is something that happens far too often. Drivers brake too late and accelerate too early, which means that they are carrying way too much speed through the corner, and the car unfortunately cannot handle that. And the result is that the car just goes wide and it takes longer to reach full acceleration and maximize exit speed. And unfortunately, this is exactly what happens to most drivers. But another element to this whole story is widely misunderstood.
But we talked about this in great deal in our workshop, is knowing how wide your car is. I use bumper cam when I race in 2D. I race in 2D if I'm streaming or if I'm competitive racing. Otherwise, I'm in VR. But when I'm in 2D, I use bumper cam. And knowing how wide my car was very important, or is very important. I thought I knew how wide the car was, but I really didn't.
And just to clarify, it's not that something magical happens when you understand how wide your car is, but if I wanted to give it a short answer, it would be this: use the full width of the track and use absolutely everything available to you. And the easiest way to understand it is quite simple. Pull over to the side of the track, park the car, switch to your usual camera view, and then change to the external view so you can actually see the car completely. And you'll notice how much room you have on either sides of the track. Is it left or right? And how much track actually you can use before the corner. I didn't even realize how big of a difference this made until someone pointed it out to me. It can literally improve your lap times even by a few tenths. Even Grey Rock confessed something very, very similar to this.
What I would have historically done was I would maybe get my line wrong through a corner, and as I came out the other side, I would just approach the next turn wherever I was on the track. So I'd hit the brakes, take that turn, not understanding that by not using the full width of the track, I was losing so much time. So what I'm doing now is I will always aim to be at the edge of the track, whether that's out on the curb, wherever it may be, so that I take the correct line through the corner.
I mean, just think about it. If you gain a tenth each time you widen your entry, and if you do it 5 times, that's already half a second down. And it's actually that simple. But another part of this issue is, or should I say, rather the main issue with carrying speed through the corners, wasn't just about how much track you can use. It was also about how much speed you can actually carry through the corner. And that was another area he struggled with.
The next thing that I struggled a lot with then as well was I was over braking. So I would brake fully all the time. I was trail braking, so I would then release and trail brake into a turn, but I would hold the brakes for far too long. And what that would end up doing was I would slow down too much, and then I'd have to get on the power early to pick up the speed, but because I had lost so much speed, I was putting too much power down and I was losing the rear end of the car.
So I think his conclusion brings us to another very common problem that many drivers face: over braking. And I think it's more common than you might think. So when we reviewed his footage, he was just applying too much braking pressure than it was necessary. And because of that, he simply couldn't carry enough speed through the corners. And on top of that, his entry angle wasn't right. So when the car slowed down too much, his instinct was just to get back onto the power to recover that speed. But as soon as you start to accelerate too soon, the car loses balance and of course it loses control. And all of those small mistakes really build up, and all of those things combined just lead to another issue.
So I could get a fast lap, I could set a decent TT on any of the daily races, but then replicating that over and over again was difficult. So I wouldn't be able to then go into the race and either have that same pace or be consistent lap by lap.
We've reviewed countless laps, really trying to understand what was actually working, and I believe these points sum it up well. Because it's not easy to find something truly valuable for the drivers who are already quick. But of course, if you're just starting out, these tips will help you straight away. But for someone or an experienced driver, and the creators have said it, some struggles will always remain, no matter how fast you can get.
To learn and improve right now is car handling under emergency conditions. So I've found quite often if I make a mistake and the car loses control and I'm spinning, I haven't quite figured out how to collect it yet. So recovering a car that's completely out of control, that's probably one of my biggest struggles at the moment.
So I believe this point really sums it up. Even if you reach a high level, A or A+, you will still face some struggles, and that's completely normal. And I think the goal of this video is to present everything in a clear, easy to understand way to anyone at any level, so you can clearly see what people actually are struggling with. We even looked into telemetry data, which shows exactly where improvements can be made. And for example, if you're just watching a replay, it can be quite hard to tell exactly where you're losing time. But telemetry, however, can tell you exactly when you're braking too late, if you're not taking that right racing line, or simply because you're losing too much speed in some of the areas. I mean, it's a much clearer tool than just relying on replays, and as players progress, it becomes easier to understand these insights because the data presents everything in a very simple visual way. And that's exactly what we did with most of the players' replays. We ran them through telemetry data, analyzed their replays, and identified the areas where they could improve. And for some, the difference was massive. For others, it really came down to something as simple as adjusting how they apply the throttle or refining their acceleration curve. It also helps with what I'd say is the most common area where people get stuck.
You think you're doing things right, but you just can't see any better, right? You're like, I'm doing this correctly, but it's not quite. Are you missing out on things that you don't know?
And I believe the core idea behind my course and coaching wasn't exactly about improving on a single track and just hoping that it sticks forever. It's about learning how to adapt your style, really evolve as a driver, and really understand what mistakes you're making and really understand how you can fix them. And all of this comes from the course linked in the description. But even this video alone can help you improve to the point where you'll recognize exactly what you're struggling with. And as you grow as a driver, this is one of the most important things to understand.
How to drive a specific car on a specific track so that you can take the best out of that car for that track.
And I just have to mention this because this was one of his biggest struggles. He's a very quick driver, one of the fastest we had in the session and in the complete workshop, almost at A+, which is just an incredible achievement on its own. But as Luke and I analyzed his laps, it became clear that he just wasn't driving at the true limit of a specific car. And when you compare his style to the world's best drivers, you really start to see the difference. Things like gear shifts, how early he applied the power, how late he brakes into the corner, whether he took an early or late entry, or how much braking pressure he used. Was it 25 or maybe even 30%? And all of those details really matter. And then there is a question of optimal shifting points. Should you rev it up or just leave it in third gear, or is it better to upshift soon to fourth gear? And all of those small factors in the end make a big difference. And once you really reach this level, you really need to start thinking about all of those details more carefully. And the higher you climb, the more awareness and precision you will need. But above all, I would say that the most important thing is just to stay clean and consistent and really respect the drivers you're racing with.
Racing with a bit of consideration for them, you know? So, like, even if you just give somebody space to make a move around the outside and you don't squeeze them out, etc., things like that, then they will give that back to you. And it actually leads to a lot of really, really fun and good, clean racing, which, you know, I think most of us, that's what we value the most, right?
But I mean, it's not only about that. Yes, you should stay respectful and clean because that's how you create a better experience for everyone around you. However, quitting races or intentionally hitting others can completely ruin your driver rating. So you'll end up in lobbies with much worse behavior and very little chance for some real improvement. And I believe that's the core of this game, racing with the right people, learning from them, and really improving together. And when you compete with clean, respectful drivers, you naturally become better yourself. It can be difficult at times, I understand that, but if everyone puts in a little effort, things can really change for the better. And that's exactly what happened with Kizzy. We recently helped him improve his rating, and he's now one of the fastest drivers Luke has ever coached. He shared some valuable advice for players that are aiming to reach that really, really high level.
The biggest value that I got out of his tips was the vision, where to put your eyes on the track, how to look ahead and how to look at what you need to prepare for when you're about to hit a corner or hit a braking point or take an exit out of a corner, all those different things, like where to put your focus on, and always be 1, 2, even 3 steps ahead of the track or of the situation that you found yourself in.
And I mean, that's it. You need to know where to focus your eyes and be ready for the next corner. So looking only straight ahead isn't enough. You have to anticipate what's coming and really look beyond the corner in front of you. I know this really takes a lot of practice and really strong connection with the car, but you need to feel what's going on because you need to be able to react smoothly and also position it correctly. And once you reach that point, having clear vision and awareness of what's behind the corner really helps with your line and just helps to control the car in a better way. And I believe this is something you simply cannot overlook. But here's something that I've been doing without really telling anyone about it. What I noticed was that their base performance began to improve. Not just in a few laps, but in very specific areas where they were clearly no longer repeating the same mistakes we had focused on. And over time, it's been just about 4 months now, that's exactly what started happening. Drivers began understanding what they were doing wrong, and more importantly, how to fix it. And that's something that this workshop was really about. And all in all, I think the biggest takeaway here is don't expect performance gains to happen overnight. Real progress comes from really identifying long-term mistakes and staying focused on improving over time. I mean, coaching can help. My course can definitely help. But ultimately, you need to understand what needs to be fixed. And of course, we are here to guide you through that process, but it starts with your mindset and with your commitment. And also make sure to keep in mind the key points we covered in this video. I really hope that you find it helpful and, think about subscribing or maybe even liking this video. So once again, I really hope that you enjoyed, and until the next time, bye.